All right. Oh no, now I'm fuck my light up. Um, Hang on. No, I can't. You're still on mute, bro. I can't hear. You done eating?
Yes.
Amazing. Welcome, Misfits is a professional production.
It is, I promise.
I had an opening bit, but I'll save it because this'll do. Roll those credits. From Sydney, Australia, all the way to Portland, USA, two misfits hang out after class to riff on the B-sides of professional life. These are your professional misfits. All the way from Sydney, Australia, I'm your host, Christopher Sellers.
Portland, Oregon, I'm Brody Ipox.
And we're your professional misfits, where we riff on the B-sides of professional life. And welcome back to season 2, where we're talking about misfit relationships, folks. That's the theme of the season. And working all the way down now to episode 16, we're actually talking about love. Go figure. We're talking about misfit love. That's a great title for a film, Misfit Love. But I'll take the lead on this one, B. So we knew love is an all expansive, vague, random topic. Okay, now we're dealing with relationships. We've talked about personal, we've talked about professional, we've talked about family. This last 5 episodes of this arc is everything else, everything in between, all the little things that we haven't covered. So of course, love is going to fall in here. So for some structure and context of where this conversation's going, said to be beforehand, what I was going to talk about was the different types of love we happen to find in relationships. And so that's where we'll sort of open up this conversation rather than, what do you love? What do I love? Have you ever been in love? It gets a bit vague at
Oh yeah,
times.
I think I ran Joyce through probably 50 different questions, and all of them were just absolute trash. I was like,
Right.
dude, oh my god. Okay, AI obviously does not understand the concept of love.
Not yet. Not yet. And
That's
for
fair.
those at home, Joyce is our AI assistant. So we named her Joyce. So anytime we have some busy work, or B uses her a lot to like all the back end stuff, for all the algorithms and all the videos and stuff. So he's like, Joyce, what's some nice keywords and like make this sound sexy. And so Joyce goes and does all that hard work for us. So hopefully Joyce can take over a lot of this shit soon. So okay, while we're here, B, did you know there's different types of love? And if so, how many do you think there would be?
So I remember our initial conversation about the structure of it, and that's what you had mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if I remember you listing them. I mean, categorically, I think the way that I would list it is personal, familial, and romantic. But I'm not. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what people smarter than me say.
No, that's pretty close. So obviously, yeah, look, we're talking about love. Like, so the love that you'd feel for, a partner, a husband or wife or sexual partner is going to be different to, the love and connection that you feel for your children or for members of your family or even close friends, right? And so I did my homework. I did a quick searchy this morning, and I remember that there was 4 main types that the Greeks sort of laid out way back in the day. I'll touch those in a second. But of course, it being the modern age, like, now there's 5, now there's 6, now there's 7, now there's 8, different types of love, and then we might get into this later. It's like, well, what's your love language? Because people show love in different ways. So we will probably discuss that as we move through the episode. But the big 4 that the Greeks laid out was there's eros. So this is the romantic, passionate, sexual type of love, the erotic type of love that we talked about. There's philia with PH, so PHILIA. So that's affectionate or friendly. So you and I would have, I'd say, like a filial sort of relationship. There's, I hope I pronounce this correctly, storge. So it's STORGE. And this is the unconditional familial type of love. And then there's agape. which is the selfless and universal sort of altruistic type of love. So
Yeah.
those are the big four. So let's start there.
Yeah.
let's
Let's do it.
let's start there. It's already pretty meaty. So shit, man, where do we start? Eros. There you go. Cupid, romantic, passionate, sexual. We've all been there. Are you in love, B? Are you erotically in love?
Um,
Of course you are, Tiffany.
yeah.
Mother to his children.
Yeah. So it's funny because the phrase "in love" has not sat well with me over the last few years. Just the phrasing itself, right,
Go
and
on,
not
go on, go on.
necessarily the emotion or the feelings that I'm attaching to those. Because it's like you said, she is the mother of my children. That is a different type of love than
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
my family or even my friends. Um, Being in love is tricky. I feel like the and maybe it's not necessarily society's fault. Maybe it's where I sit with it, but I think it's romanticized. I think it's
Yeah.
romanticized a lot, and in the sense that it's this perfect feeling, and it's this amazing, wonderful, crazy, uplifting, all-encompassing good thing, and
Solves everything and it's never going to change and it's flawless.
everyone can find it, right?
Everyone.
That's not fucking real. Like that shit bothers me. That's not real. Being in love with someone, it's fucking messy. It's
Mm.
committed. It's strange, is what it is. And I like I said, I just think it's romanticized so much. So that phrase, being in love, I hope this doesn't hurt anybody. That I've ever been romantic with, and especially Tiffany, mother of my children. But in love just doesn't sit well with me. It's
I hear you. I really appreciate the direction that you've taken this in, because it is more realistic and it does change. So the way that we meet anyone and the feelings and sensations you have, for it's called a honeymoon period for a while. So for those first few months, and 6 months to a year, maybe even longer, who knows. But I think you touch on a really adult and mature point, that being in love with someone, that dynamic can and will change, over time.
yeah.
Whenever you first start dating someone and you're sort of comparing your relationship to, say, your parents or even anyone that's older than you, and you ask them, be like, oh, you're in love with your wife, and like, oh, the old ball and chain, like, oh yeah, but it's different now than like you young kids, and I always wondered, well, why? Like, why does the passion leave, or are you just like sad, miserable people? And who's to say? But I think where a good place to start, especially with like a lot of the misfits that live at say live at home, but are listening, are
I'm
listening at
not
home.
taking that out.
Not yeah,
You
yeah.
made me keep too many of my shits.
They're listening at home, and this concept, I was going to joke before, like, surely not on the socials, like surely everything is true on and everyone's relationship is pure and passionate and amazing on the socials. Um, that yeah, this and it's a story that's aged for as long as media or fiction has existed. This romanticized version of a prince that will save a princess, and they'll live happily ever after, and it all works out in the end because love conquers all. Um, isn't isn't always true, and is less and less likely and realistic. And I think that's a really interesting place to sit and examine when we're talking about relationships and how this sort of impacts us. And to reference the big four before, to realize that there's more than just this erotic pursuit of love. There are friends and family. There are people that we work with. Well, families over here, and then friends is something different, and then self love. Like, what does any of this mean? What is a relationship going to bring to you if you can't wholly accept yourself and who you are and what you need, men and women and everyone in between, and that's not easy enough to figure out
No,
either.
I mean,
But
none of this is. It,
right,
it,
right.
People are still trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? And we've been around for quite some time as
So
a
it's
race, as
so
a
it's a perfect
species. So,
it's a perfect conversation for us because we
yes.
solve nothing and come to no resolution. But thanks for being here anyway. But can you? All right. So if you look back, let's say your relationship with Tiff and kids and sort of where you are now, like how has it changed for you over the span of you guys being together?
Yeah, I mean, it's just evolved in so many different ways. And I mean, the thing is, too, when you look at relationships in totality, it's like you said, a lot of it's phases.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people don't necessarily want to admit that, right? Because then that means that some of the good parts leave, right? Some of the good phases pass. And that's just reality, you know. And like, one thing that I'd say my this relationship has really truly taught me is that, I mean, honest to God, love is commitment on all levels, right? And you can fuck that up really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's changed me as a person more than it's changed the relationship, right? We have definitely come together and come apart and come together, and changes, and seen periods of strength and things like that. But really, what it does, if you're open to it, makes you really look at yourself. You know, because
Mm,
if you do love someone, if you do love someone and you care about them, it's really fucking hard to watch them hurt. It's
mm, mm.
really hard to watch them be uncomfortable. It's really hard to watch them not understand you too.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a difficult thing to come to the realization of, is that you might love someone and that you guys might not understand each other at all.
Y- yeah. That's awfully deep, awfully quick. That's normally my section, my man. Um, I'll jump back to something you said as well about this belief that being in love and being in this erotic state, when the relationship starts to change and mature over time, that like we're going to lose all the good stuff. Like I'm going to be young and hot forever, and we're always going to be young and hot and sexy, um, and we're going to lose all that good stuff. It's like, well, not exactly. Like it's going to change. There's going to be other good stuff
Right.
that you're going to find that you wouldn't find if you just stay in the like we're never going to leave the bed and this is going to be amazing. I'm looking at the big four sort of list here at the moment and going through it, having like affectionate or friendly friendship, love. Like surely you want, as much as someone that you want to have sex and are attracted to all the time, surely you want a best friend in a partner, don't you? I've often said like sex is pretty easy to come by in this day and age, and it has been for a while, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
I don't think it actually ever was difficult to come by, if I'm
right,
being honest.
yeah, and it's just more publicized now. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like the
Right.
same, right? So when in my 20s there was no social media, but the same conversations that I was having with my boys in the car and complaining about girls and like other dickhead boyfriends and why does she date him and all this sort of shit now makes a YouTube channel. And
Yep.
then you've got 50,000 incels. Like, fuck, like, thank God it was a phase that I just went through, like, driving around the fucking car with Steve and the boys. Um, but, and so wanting a best friend. So, yeah, I'd often say, like, you can kind of get sex anywhere, but, like, find someone that you can get ice cream with.
I love you have said it. I love that.
Like, it's like, but let's go.
I feel like you've said something else too, where it's like, you know, it's not the
Oh,
the
it's not,
night out or
yeah, it's sex is easy. It's the breakfast after sex.
that right
That was it,
there. And,
you
and
know?
it's so funny when you're going over the big four, like immediately my brain went to, if I'm looking for someone to be in love with, right?
Mm.
I might need a little bit of all that. I might just need a little
So,
bit of all that.
so I'm heading this way, right? And so then when I look at storage, unconditional love, or the love that you're supposed to get from your family, we think we were talking about this a bit earlier. I'm like, I don't know if I've ever had that. I don't know. I can't say unequivocally that I haven't. I lie. My grandmother,
Mm,
Glenn's mum, and it's funny given the family and sort of dynamic that I grew up in
I was
with
just
my
going to say that.
right. My grandmother was the only one our entire life. All we ever heard was, "I'm so lucky I have such beautiful grandchildren." And even when I see her
So
now, and
fucking pure too. It's just pure. It's just pure. That's
I think
love. The
right.
yeah.
And she turns 93 this year, and every time I see her, she's like, "Chris, how's Sydney? Tell me all about it." And there's a little, like, because you and I have a special connection, and I swear she says this to every grandkid, but no, it's just special for me. And like, we have a special connection, and like, you were always something special, even when you were a baby. And she always recites the same story, and then she'll probably run off to her little drawer and like grab a 50 and put it in my hand, and don't tell your father, and all of that. So
We have the same grandmother.
maybe. So there you go. I have had a taste of what that would be like. Have I had that in relationships? Don't know. Would I like that in a relationship? I think that would be nice. I mean, not
What?
not I love you irrespective of how you behave. You know.
No. No,
Yeah.
right. And look, that's the thing. I don't think and this is where it gets touchy, right? And this is just honest conversations. This isn't to hurt anybody or put anybody out there.
No, no, no.
I don't think a lot of us have experienced that because the shit that we take into relationships tends to play a component in that as
Yeah.
well, right? And whether that's trauma, whether that's past behaviors or habits,
Hmm, hmm.
um, and look, and from my own personal experience, that shit in myself has made me hard to love unconditionally, right? Because, like we're talking about, it's not unbeknownst to how I'm behaving.
Yeah.
I still need to show up.
Yeah.
But because of those instances, right, where you can go back and forth and be like, boundary, fuck you. I I think that's played too much, right? To
Right.
where, and especially for myself, where there's times I don't know if it's appropriate to love the way that I'm feeling I should. Should I give this person the affection when I just felt battered? Should I show
Right.
up when this person would never fucking in a million years show up for me in the way that I would? And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
these conversations that you have with yourself that then become a condition, right? And I'm talking about myself. I do this
Hmm,
shit all the
hmm,
time.
hmm.
If you don't show up for me, I'm not showing up for you. That's a fucking condition. That's not unconditional love. I don't know. I don't think I have. And like I said, I think it's because of the things we each have in our own selves that
Yeah.
don't allow us to give that and then in turn receive it, right? Because
Okay, because that, yeah, so right there, because you mentioned we'll often model the types of love and relationships that we've learned from. So whether that's friends, parents, we learn this behavior, this is normal for us, and so this is how we behave, right? If we're talking about unconditional love right now, um what then is your giving relationship as a father to your sons? Like, everyone who's listening on Spotify, now go to YouTube and watch Brody's reaction. Because I'm curious, because whenever you talk about your kids in, second or third hand, you've got the time, you've got the patience, you'll be there, you want to be there, you'll go the extra yard, you clear your weekends. I can't get a hold of you because I'm working with the boys, I'm doing all of that. And that's, I really really respect you for that, like, as a man, as a friend, as a father. um and that's something I really really admire in you, and people who take that sort of stance and initiative of, I want to be there, I don't want to be an absentee parent. Like I want to be there
Appreciate
for
that.
my kids. So when hearing you, about a minute ago go, I don't know if I've had unconditional love either. Did you feel you're able to give it for, say, your kids, like friends and everyone else, whatever, but for your sons? I know you're getting all the tough questions today, my man. This is what happens when I'm single.
uh, look, yeah. See, that's the thing. That's the thing when we talk about that term. I think it's dangerous. I think it's dangerous because, and especially with kids, right? And especially with kids, if and this is again, this is just pure honesty. I have definitely had moments of just pure and unconditional love. You show up to me as you are, and I will love you, right? And there's some that are easier than others. So when you do some quirky shit in public, and some other parent will be like, "That's weird." No, I love you. I love you. I see you, and I love you. I like you. I know who you are. Um, and then there's you're misbehaving, and I want to fucking pop you, but I love you. I love you. I get it. You're fucking tired. Okay. Um, in the same sense, and not in such the constrictive way of conditions, right? But I have to model something appropriate for my sons, and
Yeah, yeah.
boundaries are one of those things, right? And I think especially for men in this day and age, right? And especially for boys growing up, if they can't identify emotional boundaries or indicators, they're in a fucking shit situation as boys, right? Coming into any type of relationship that they come into, any type of interaction or social dynamic, you can't read the room, you're dead in the water. And a big part of, loving unconditionally, I think in today's age, in day and age, is this kind of soft parenting stuff. And I'm not against it. And I implement actually quite a bit of it. But in the same essence, if you were to show up and you've done something horribly wrong, I am not the type of parent to say that you did not disappoint me. I'm honest. You took a little piece of something. You took something from me right there, and I'm going to tell you right now. And I don't know what that was. And yes, I still love you, but that's some real shit, and you're going to have to figure out how that sits with you. You can't be unconditional all the time. And just an example of, and I that probably wasn't the best one, but it's just a hard seat to be in, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, if these guys don't know boundaries and they think that they can just get and get and get and get and get,
And you're always on call and everything will be fine and everything's
I'm not
excusable.
serving them. I'm not
Yeah.
serving them.
Yep.
So with kids, it's a weird fucking thing. Yes, unconditional, right? Honestly, one of my kids could probably murder somebody, and I'd help them bury the body. But like at the same time, it's like, holy shit, I fucking hate you for making me do this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's got to be real too. Like I will love you, and I will show up, and I will bury the body. But I am
We're gonna
you
have words after. Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
made me fucking do this.
Yeah.
You made me do this because I love you, and that's
Mm.
fucked up. That's a fucked up way to use love. That's a shitty way to use love, and
Yes.
that's what I'm trying to
Yes.
say. That's what I would like to teach them is the boundary of this isn't of use to you in that way, right? Like yes, it will serve you and it will be there for you and it will fill you, but in the same essence, this is not something you use.
You tap into something really interesting here. It just sparked an idea because I say this would frame most of our outlooks in our teens and our 20s when we go looking for a relationship, when we go seeking a relationship with anyone, is like, do we not see love as something that's transactional? So if I'm, if I'm a nice guy and I'm sort of attracted to you and you're sort of attracted to me, like if I am a nice guy and treat you like a nice guy, then you'll treat me like a nice girl, and that's what love. And we might have sex, we might hang out, we might be friendly, we might have a good time, but and this is the way I'm describing it.
All conditional
It is,
contingencies.
and it's
Yes.
totally transactional. It's like if I behave in this way, then like you'll like me, and that's what I want. Is I want someone to like me, and I want someone to love me, and like just I want that sort of companionship. And if it's sounding superficial, it is, but this is also one of the conditions of this eros state of love. It's often a romanticized, disingenuous, or at least shallow version of whatever it is that you think, that you're, you know, in the words of the Greeks, what you are worshiping. Like, you're worshiping a statue of something. It's not living, breathing, moving, shitting, crying, angry,
Eh,
happy, sad. It's an image of something that you want affection from. Um, and
yeah,
I know we're talking about this as boys, and I wonder for all our female misfits at home whether this applies to you as well. Like, whether you have to be good enough, smart enough, pretty enough, slutty enough, funny enough, you
and
know,
what boundaries as females do you learn in your
yeah.
development of understanding or conceptualizing love for yourself?
And is it something that you actively pursue, or is it sort of, if we look back at any of our episodes on dating apps, is it just something that you have to weed through trash in order to find something suitable? And if that's the case, then I always make this case, like, then why aren't you being active? Like,
Mm.
why do you choose the role of being, I'll be the pretty doll that sits on the shelf and wait for the big strong alpha male to come pick me? Like, why don't you actively seek it, or do you? And so I'd love to fucking get your guys' take on this. So when you listen to this, like, shout at me in the LinkedIn comments, and we'll have that chat. But back to my original question, because I went on a rant. Do you find that, be like, it's a transactional thing? If I'm good, if I earn enough money, if I am enough, then I'll earn love, because it's a transaction, like something that I'm owed or deserved from someone.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer. You and I have had this conversation, and this is not in any way to woe is me to the men of the world, but I don't. I've said this to you: men don't get flowers until they're dead. Uh, you know that.
I've got them once.
Okay, some
No,
men.
no, 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 but I entirely hear your point.
Right,
But I
right.
think it was because I made this exact joke to the girl at the time, and she went out of her way to bring me flowers once, which I thought was very sweet.
Yeah, and so look, it is transactional, and I'll be honest with you. There's pieces of it I understand, right? Because this, for all intents and purposes, is an shared experience, life, right? We're here with one another. It's as much as it's up here, it's also out here, and we have roles that we have to play. We have roles, and knowing those roles and understanding them is key. But I think one of the things I'm coming to understand as a man is you are, and this isn't to anyone that loves me, my kids or Tiffany or anybody. It's not to anybody. It's just it is transactional. And I think a lot of the times more so for men. Women can show up, they can be in the household, they can go out of the household, that they have the options, right? If I don't show up, like you said, and provide, I know for a fact and have been through the experience of that would sit negatively with the person that's supposed to love me. And
So
that's tough.
I know I don't want to get too pseudo philosophical or psychological, but what about all the girls out there who, like, oh, I really want to fix him. He's got all these tats. He's like a single dad now. I can I can save him. I can take care of him. I can be just the loving, nurturing figure he's always wanted. And the reason I ask, right, is the reason I ask because, again, like, if you hold this view that my, like, love for me and my worth is transactional on what I provide, then shit, what happens when you know COVID comes along, wipes us all out, and then you can no longer provide, like, as this as this role that you've become known for. Your identity and your status is shifted or taken away from you.
Well,
So
that's what's scary. That's
yeah,
that. I'll
fuck
be
yeah.
honest with you. And again, that's where I don't think I've met unconditional love, because not it sounds so uh, like I'm explaining these people to be like facetious, but I'm not. It's just that that's just how it is. You know what I mean? If we were in the mud, right? If we were in the mud and I didn't go out and try to figure out how to get us out of it, my people would look at me a certain way. And
Hmm.
it's like you said, I don't know if that's because that's the role that we're all conditioned in to know and see. I don't
Right.
know if that's how I've tried to present myself personally.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's the role they know of me.
Mm.
But I will also say this, it is one of the loneliest pieces of being a father or husband or partner in a family dynamic because, two, in the same way that I will hold you when you're broken, I don't feel I have that. And not that they wouldn't love me and really wouldn't. It's that if I did, again, I would lose something of their vision of me, and that I'm a safe, solid place for them. I am the
I
fucking
wonder.
rock in the storm, and that's for instance, they watched me go through my mother passing, and I don't
Yes.
think other than, and this is truth, I don't think other than maybe a slipped single tear here and there in these last few months, they've seen me cry past me having to tell them that she was gone.
Yeah.
And they probably won't ever. I gave you a
I
lot to chew
see.
on there for a
No,
second.
you did, and like the part of me, like the little artist part of me, is like, but do you think that's? I mean, do you really think that's best serving your boys or for you? In the most
I know what you mean. I do.
right. So imagine your kids being teenagers, 20 or whatever, and they whatever they're going through, but they can the or they're dealing with loss or grief, and now you're their frame of reference, and now the frame of reference for four of them is like must be strong, can't show weakness or vulnerability, can't cry. And I know there's certain things that we've touched on throughout two seasons about loneliness in men, or men being vulnerable, and does that make us less than, or what is a high value man, and these standards are ridiculous, and sort of everything else. And I totally hear where you're coming from. I would probably behave the same. I don't know, but we do know that a healthy outlet for male the lack of a healthy outlet for male emotion is something that's silently killing men and damaging all the relationships, of people around them. And yeah, I guess it would be scary as fuck to cry in front of your sons, or like show weakness, or I'm sad, or I've lost my mum and I don't know how to deal with this, but you guys are here and you don't know what their reaction was going to be, but guaranteed all four kids would hug you.
It's bizarre hearing you say that, and like running through the 5 million different scenarios it could have been in my head, and I don't. Yeah, it's weird, talking about the unconditional stuff, and then having this point of reference. I think I could have showed up however I would have shown up, and they would have been. I really do, because I know I've also tried to show them that, and again, it's that boundary thing we talked about. I'm not going to let you treat me a certain way, right? I'm not going to be mistreated. But, after the dust settles and you're laying broken on the ground and I love you, and you were swinging at me 5 minutes ago, I'm still going to pick you up. I'm still going to pick you up. It doesn't mean that we're going to go home together. It doesn't mean that that's ever going to look the same again, but I love you. So I'm going to still show up. And
Hmm.
those boys, they're very good at that. They're very good at that. So I think you're right. I don't necessarily think it would have mattered. And I do wonder now, sitting here working it out loud, what that frame of reference is for them. Is that be strong, don't show emotion? Is it I need to be the rock? And if I'm being honest with you, I feel bad because that was a fucking intense responsibility to have.
Bro, like, come on. There's no rules. We talked about this an episode or two ago. There's no rules. Everyone's going to cope. Everyone's coping. in hindsight,
Right.
the right in hindsight, oh, the ideal response would have been like, go like, great, thanks, 2020. Um, but the good news is, like, I guess it's never too late, and it's still never too late to have that sort of conversation. Now that you're a little bit more grounded and you have a bit more of a sense of self, and to
Mm,
actually have a, and I guess it's, no, it doesn't matter because we're talking about something completely different. But it does sort of lean into this area of we come to only accept the sort of love or affection or connection that we believe we're entitled to. Like, this is it's an old one. You've probably all heard it. Like, you only accept the love you
think you
deem you
deserve.
deserve. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you start to shift that scope or that framework, when you start to do the self improvement, and you start to do your own self work, and start to realize, well, actually, I want something else, and I want something better, and I want something healthier. It gets lonely for a long time, because you're giving up all your common frames of reference, and you're hoping, and it's a blind hope, and it's a blind trust that what you feel you deserve is going to be on the other side of the void there somewhere. I've never had it, but I'm gonna go looking for the thing I think.
Very, very well described. Very well
I
described.
It's literally what I'm going through at the moment. Like, professionally, I'm in a little bit of a limbo, and personally, it's sort of this journey of, like, great, finally get to give up all this sort of shit. I think I know who and what I want, and who I am, and I sort of want an equal in terms of this reciprocation. Um,
Well, that's one of the things that I have written down to ask you.
yeah,
Like
okay.
in God, it sounds so weird. In this day and age and in this world, I mean, like, what has that been like? Because we've talked. I mean, truly, because we've talked about this a ton. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
what my relationship dynamic is. I've had someone. Okay,
right.
I've had someone, and we've had a relationship, and we've loved each other, and we've had kids, and we've had experiences, and we love each other's families, and that doesn't just poof away in a night. That's not the same as a relationship where someone can walk away and I can never fucking see him again. They're not intertwined. They don't have
Yeah,
my kid attached to them. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What does that even look like? How? Because I can't look. I'm sitting here thinking, like, what if in one of those times early on we hadn't fucking made it through and Jax wasn't around and there wasn't this connection that is outside of ourselves that we have to
Hmm.
fight for. Uh,
Yeah, I got no
you know what I mean?
responsibilities. I do, I do, I do, I do. I'm allowed to do that. I have no responsibilities. I can cut you off, and likely cut me off, and go thanks, and block all the details, and, like, don't talk to me again. Um, so what are you asking? Like, what is it? Love? What is it?
What's it like looking for it? I
Yeah,
mean,
it sucks. Um,
so I should
no,
not
no, no,
say
no.
this.
It's okay. That's the short answer. And we've already done the dating app episode, so go back and listen to that. That's always
Right.
when you
Yeah,
know.
plug on that episode. But I mean, really here, and not to be too philosophical, I'm just the pursuit of you made
Yeah.
you framed that really well because there's a different dynamic when it comes to an encompassing approach to this. I have to fix things and love things about myself. I have certain relationships I need to fix with
As
friends
we
or
all do.
family.
As we all do.
Right.
Yes.
So again, I'm forced into it most of the time. Not forced. That sounds fucked up. That sounds
No, no,
fucked
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah. You have connections, and it's always a work in progress. Yes, yes,
Right.
yes.
I have to pursue it. I
Yeah,
have to.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yep, 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 yep.
Because if I don't, then I'm really easily held accountable for that fact.
Look, the good news is, no one knows what they're doing, and they're all making it up as they go along, and that's true whether in a relationship or whether in my case where you're single. And I guess it particularly sucks for me because I'm romantic, and I always have been. And I don't know, I did go through a period of sort of just like accepting anyone that would have me, if I'm honest. And that's probably
Mm,
where my
mm,
previous questions came
mm.
from, is like, if you're willing to sleep with me, then okay. And that's
But
stories for another time.
but
But
that's different. I feel like accepting
it's
affection.
no, no, it's not. In my case, I can tell you that it's not, because it's basically
Okay,
coming from the
okay,
same place. And like
okay.
in a lot of relationships, it was
Trying to
yeah,
fill that same spot.
I guess looking for this sort of looking for a sort of unconditional love, and so you end up picking. I end up picking broken princesses that I think, I can fix and save and make it all better. And then once you're now the better version of you, then you'll understand it was me and I'm the greatest guy in the world. And they no, utterly
It doesn't
dysfunctional.
work like that.
No, it sure doesn't.
And women don't work like that, my bro.
It well, and people don't work like that.
People don't fucking
Yeah,
work like
and
that.
no, it didn't. And then that means the relationships. It's a one-way dynamic where I'm just constantly giving and constantly patient and constantly tolerant. Similar to what you were saying, like I'm giving you a ton of unconditional love, but you're just abusing it because you think you can. Then sort of grew out of that. Met my now ex at the time, and we first started dating. And now, so he was someone, when it was in the beginning and when it was good, like he was someone that did offer me um, unconditional love, and was a best friend, and was a sexual partner, and even with all my little foibles and like bad mental health days and stuff, she was still
So
just
you feel like you've
accepted.
had it.
Well, yeah, again, yeah, but and then of course it's tainted because we broke up over stupid lies and deceit, and I'll never fucking understand why, right? So
No, and in
that
such a shitty way. I don't remember what episode we talked about it, but Chris does explain that his life was like a country song during this
he
time
made a
period.
fucking YouTube clip of it as well and put it out there.
So,
Literally. So that's how all the misfit. He's laughing. My life is a joke to you, but okay,
oh,
no, it is. It is. No, it's all in good fun. It is a country music song. Um, so yeah, it's and so that breakups or loss, this taints our or changes our view of like of what love is. Because again, in our 20s, like they're supposed to be perfect and never hurt me, and that's always the case with someone you love, isn't it? Like your family is never supposed to hurt you,
oh,
and
and in your 20s, you show up as the most fucking unhealed version of yourself. So you know you're swinging on
bro,
somebody. Like you're hurting somebody. You're hurting
right?
somebody. That's just.
And so you asked me how is it now? It's like I'm coping too. I'm coping with I'm coping with an everyday I'm coping with an everyday loneliness. Like, yes, I'm a massive, massive introvert, so I can go stand on stage, talk to 5,000 people, be fine with that. Then I'll have to crash out in bed for the entire next day, maybe two. Spend 90% of my time in cafes on my own, like writing and stuff. Do I want a loving partner? Absolutely. So that like it's but where and when and how, that's sort of where my mind is kind of boiled down to right now. It's sort of like, where and when and how am I supposed to meet someone? And there's a little ridiculous poet in the back of my brain is like, when I sign for Volt and I move to Sweden, or most likely Sweden, but anywhere in Europe, he's like, that's the time.
I think I got to
Like,
be honest with you. I think we all do that.
oh, cool, all right.
You don't have to feel alone in that, because I mean that's the same thing. I've got a couple projects going on as well as the Misfits and what we're doing here and what this is going to turn into. Yeah, it's interesting, man. This episode has actually turned out way better than I thought. And this, for the Misfits at home, it wasn't that I didn't think we could pull this conversation off. It's just we spoke a little bit. This is such a broad topic, right?
It
It's a
is.
and it can feel so messy when someone's trying to explain their version of it. But this, to me, I feel like I'm kind of understanding a lot, and it like almost a linear way that we're talking about these. It kind of leads into what was the friendship, the four.
Yeah, the philia. There's philia, which is affectionate, kind of friendly. Yeah,
Yeah.
aphilia. So, yep.
You need that shit to get through the fucking despair of not having the other ones.
They're a nice little cyclical matrix. Um, Figure that one
And
out.
I want to go back real quick to something, to you misfits at home. I think as we progress through this and Chris and I have these conversations, it might seem to some that, as much as we're not solving anything, we have our own resolutions, right? But realist, but realistically, we're working this shit out in real time with you guys,
Uh,
and it's just as fucking messy. It's just as hard. It's just as fucking slipping into the unknown as you guys feel, But that's kind of what this is for us, an anchor
that was
to,
the mandate for the podcast.
yeah,
It was never going to be 6 easy steps. It was never going to be follow our blueprint. It's like, it's the B-side. Let's have the uncomfortable conversations. Let's talk about the shit that no one talks about. We're talking about the shit that no one talks about.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, what? One question that I did want to ask
Mm.
with love specifically, right? And any form of love. And it sucks because we keep talking about the unconditional one. What in what way do you think do you feel you should have to show up in a certain way to receive those kind of loves? Do you think
Um,
who we are as a person, right? Just who you sit as, is that enough? Can that be love?
yeah, yeah. I want to say yes and no. And I'll start with the no first. If you like, you there's people. It's that shitty quote of like, love like it's your first time and dance like no one's laughing and all this sort of shit. And I'm like, okay, really? So your first time out, you normally love selfishly. You'll accept it from anyone you can. It's just about sex, you know. And I sort of make the point of like, surely the love from a broken heart is worth more
Mm.
because this other person has been through all of that,
And chooses to
tasted,
love you.
right, and then chooses to love you over the experience they've just been through. Like, surely that is worth more,
Wow.
right?
Mm.
Rather than this, what you said, this romanticized first time Romeo meets Juliet.
And
So
P.S. Misfits, Romeo and Juliet didn't work out really well. Like, just
don't
fucking saying.
don't get me started on R&J because then the Shakespeare geek will just come out. So I don't think if you show up as ignorant, selfish, narcissistic, only attracted to material or surface value things, then I think you're
But
going to
what if
get
that's who you are?
no, but that's what I think you're going to get the sort of love that you deserve in that respect.
Mm.
I don't think
Mm.
love, genuine, authentic, the long term, rich relationships. I don't think that's a short term con.
No.
And I'm lucky. I'm lucky now that as I've matured, I've seen enough healthy adult relationships around me to go, it can be done. You can
Mm.
have the loving,
Mm.
supportive partner. They can get through shit. Like, they're not the pristine couple. Like, they can get through shit. They can still be the loving, supportive partners. They can raise kids. They can have businesses. You can still be a decent human. Um, I am lucky. My parents are still together. I mean, their relationship works for them, and it absolutely doesn't work for me. But there are others around that are great examples of how they met and why they're still together. And so, as much as there's heartbreak and disappointment and a 50% divorce rate, and even my own, crushing
Mhm.
loneliness of singledom, I can still look outside of my experience to go, here's all these examples that demonstrate it can be done. So at the moment, I'll maintain that hope.
Mm.
So
Mm.
there's part of me that feels we're all, it's a romantic notion that we're all in, it would be nice if we all deserve someone. I don't think I'd wish that. I don't think I'd wish solitary confinement on anybody. Um, but there's a responsibility of you to do the work and have some self awareness, and and
Because
and
isn't that love?
because let's start there. I mean, it's not mentioned on the big four, but it's down here at the very bottom. It's fill out. Basically, it's self love. Philautia. Philautia.
Mhm.
But basically self love. So it's like you prioritize you, take care of you first, and then worry about the relationships that will complement you. And that's actually where I am now. Like knowing who I am and where I'm going and what I'm about to do within the next few weeks or months, and then knowing what my values are around that and who I'd like to be with. That's sort of how I'm aligning
And you
who
just build the space. You just build the space.
and again in theory, because again who I'm attracted to,
Right.
who I'm attracted to as opposed to the girl on the paper has been historically two very different things, my man. um
I
so
think that's gonna just how it's gonna be.
it
That's
right
I think
and yeah,
I think the person that we're talking about that we all deserve, right? And that's the thing. That's again just to fall back real quick on this romanticized version is that's the thing. I don't want that shit. I mean, people talk about it, and I feel like a lot of people are chasing it, but I don't. I've never wanted to live in a world of constant happiness. That feels like a delusion to me, and
right,
and that sounds so weird. I'm not looking for. I am obviously. I am. I'm a human being. I'm looking for satisfaction. I'm looking for happiness. But at the same time, I've come to the realization for myself, it's an experience. It's not a destination. And if you can sit with somebody in the fucking experiences that suck and still love each other,
yeah,
that's the shit that matters. That's the shit that's real. That's the shit that you hold on to. And it makes me think of something you just said a few minutes ago. How do you then, if you feel like it's void of you, cope with the everyday loneliness?
yeah.
Because we're
I
talking about self and we're talking
Yeah,
about. So I'm curious. I mean, for you, what do you do? What is that? I'm not talking 6 steps here. I'm saying,
sure,
for
yeah,
you
right.
personally, how does that?
So my day to day is I'll swim 3 times a week. So I'm normally up at 6. I'll walk down to the pool. I'll get my laps in. Straight after that, go to the cafe, local cafe, Apache. Shout out to Tom and the boys. And that's sort of like the social hangout. And I've said this before, but if Cheers was a cafe, it would be Apache. And it's cool. Everyone knows each other by their first name. I work there on the weekends. It's just chill vibe, really cool hangout spot. And get all this done by maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm normally home by 8. And then my best time to work is in the morning. So I get all my productive shit done. I'm normally done by 10 or 11. Um, and then yeah, lunch and whatever else in the afternoon. But it's look, I journal every day. I've kept a journal since I was 19. I've got about 90 journals, handwritten journals on a shelf, and I've documented all my life since I was 19. And for me it's emotional and mental housekeeping as much as it's been a vent, but it's single, alone, wherever I was in the world, journaling. So that works for me. I have a handful of friends that I can seldom talk to about at this level, or long enough because everyone's got limited time. It's difficult. It's honestly difficult, just in terms of I think what we've talked about previously in terms of connection, because you're not going to share vulnerabilities with people that you've just met. It takes a bit of time to build trust and rapport, and then once you do, you might. I met actually, she's probably listening to this podcast. I met a very good friend, Charmaine. Hey, Charms. Um, about 2 weeks ago, just before she went on her trip to Fiji, and we were talking about this. And she's got a loving relationship with her husband, and they've got a young son, and this was their first family trip to Fiji and stuff like that. And she was talking about all her relationship stuff, and they've been together for a while, and they were together through COVID. So anyone that had a relationship going through COVID knew that fucking stress, right?
Right.
And it's funny because like me being the single guy listening, yeah, can identify with all of it, and it's sort of like same but different. Like having, and she did have the unconditional love, and that's what she was describing to me over coffee. Because she won't mind me sharing this. I hope you don't, Charms. Is that they were going to, her and her husband were going to sleep at like 11 o'clock at night, and the phone message goes off or something. And he checks the message, and Charms is trying to fall asleep. And he's like, "Don't you want to know who that is?" And he's like, "Babe, you do you." And he's like, "It's like the Chinese guy from like the laundromat or something." She's like, "Baby, if that's what you're into, that's fine. Like you do."
It's charmed. I love you.
Right. And their whole vibe was just like, "Baby, you do you, because I love you and trust you at such a level where like this little shit, it means nothing, right? Is insignificant to the richness of life that we've developed over years." Now, this same incident early in the Eros stage of your relationship, man, who the fuck's messaging you at 11 o'clock at night? The fuck's going to show me your phone?
Yep.
Right? Any of that. So
Yep.
imagine you've now evolved your
I'd
love.
say a majority of relationships in any stage right now because of the dynamic. Yeah.
Or whatever. But like, imagine that you could evolve your relationship, evolve your love, and it is an option, to this point of like, we have such unconditional trust, and whatever's going to come up, we can talk about it.
It takes a lot of self-evolution too.
Right. But that's, I guess this is a nice place to sort of end or start to wrap up, is these types of relationship, these types of love that we've described, they don't just fucking happen by chemical accident, folks. You have as much choice and responsibility in shaping these sort of relationships that you want. If you're in an unhealthy relationship, change it, leave, change yourself, right? If you don't get unconditional love from the people around you, then either recognize that, change it, leave, find a way to give it to yourself, ask for it. It's not, you don't have to settle with, this is just how these people, this is just how my family, this is just how my partner treats me, and that's just the way it is. Like, that's called complacency and acceptance. Fine. But if you're lacking anything that we've talked about, you have the responsibility to ask, change, or find it.
And I love that. I love that you mentioned that. Ask for it, Misfits. I know that sounds crazy. I know it's scary a lot of the times, but truly, when we're talking about these types of relationships and dynamics, we don't read minds. We don't read minds, and it's a difficult place to be in when you're trying to juggle your own fucking shit, and you've got to figure out how to love somebody. So if you can, I mean, communication is key, right? So if you can, communicate what you need, and then seriously, like, if you don't get it, like Chris said, you have options. You have options. You are not confined to misery. That's not the world we live in, and you can be loved, and you can do something to get that.
Well said. What a
You as well, my
lovely
friend.
episode. Do you know what's coming up next? Take a drink every time. Brody doesn't know what the next episode is.
Just tell me.
All right, Misfits. So this was episode 16. There's only 20 episodes in this season, so we have 3 or 4 to go. Episode 17 is supposed to be like your weirdest relationship, the weirdest relationship that either Brody or I have ever been in. We've already covered a couple of mine, and I don't know if Brody's going to have much to talk about. So stay tuned, because I might just decide to change this and make it something else. I don't know. We'll find out.
Collateral.
Right? It's not really vibing with me. It seemed good at the beginning of the season, but now I don't know how I'm feeling about it. We'll see. So anyway, there's another episode coming.
I don't even know what it is, so you guys got to drink twice.
Get an extra drink. Yeah. But after that, we're going to have the Misfits voted episode. So you'll need to join either the Facebook, follow us on any of the socials to
Mhm.
find that, and so we'll post
Yeah.
that probably next week. This is being delayed. This is delayed for release and whatever else, but basically you should be following us anyway. But you get the idea. We post that on the socials, and you can vote on it. Then we're having a chat with Travis about relationships with faith, which I think would be really fucking cool because Travis is a Christian guy. You're a spiritual dude. I'm probably more way down the agnostic side. So I think that's a really interesting discussion to have. And then it'll be season 20 sort of episode wrap up. And then we're done. And we need to figure out what we're doing for season 3.
Season 3!
Bro, season 3. How did we get here so fast? In the
Asking
meantime,
me.
Misfits, you can listen for free and you can watch us build on YouTube and Spotify. You can support us. You can support my coffee addiction on Patreon, and Brody needs new glasses, so you can support him as
And
well.
by this time,
oh, this is a big call.
We should have merch. So you go to the Patreon, you'll have discounted access to the merch.
That means it'll be in time for Christmas.
For Christmas, for your favorite professional misfit. This is it perfectly in line, so stay tuned for that. That will be available soon.
What a lovely bonus.
Yes,
maybe if you really loved someone, you'd get them a Misfit t-shirt.
You should.
You should. Like, if you really loved them.
In the comments below, should we do tumblers? Tumblers are very popular in the office, and I actually got a little hookup. Well, we got a lot of professional misfits.
Interesting.
Yes.
A misfit tumbler. I like it. Yeah. All right. So merch pitch done. Socials done. Patreon done. Love done. Sorted. Solved. On that note, I've been Chris.
I've been Brody.
And you stay lovely, Misfits. We'll see you on the next one, whatever that happens to be.